To factor this, we're doing 8 and 6. This number and this number. So we get 4 times 2 will give us 8. 4 plus 2 will give you 6. So your factors are x plus 4 and x plus 2. So guys, what will your solutions be? X equals what? Negative 4 and good. You set both of your factors equal to 0 and you just solve it. So these are your solutions. These are your factors. So these are your factors. These are your solutions. What are some other words for solutions? Roots, x-intercepts, roots, zeros. Good. We're going to be using all of these terms to represent our solutions. Okay? Now, guys, today we're going to be working backwards a little bit. Okay, so let's pretend I wasn't given all of this information. Let's say this was not given to us, and all they told us was that our solutions are -4 and -2. Because you have the solutions, can you figure out what the factors must have been? It's just the opposite, correct? X plus 4 and x plus 2 is what gives you these answers, right? Okay, so you should be able to work backwards. If I give you the solutions, you should be able to give me the factors. If I give you the factors, you should be able to give me the solutions. We should be able to go back and forth. Okay, another thing that we should be going back and forth with is going from factored form to the original equation. So the original equation was this right here. So we should be able to go back and forth. So let's look at this. Notice if I multiply this out, this is x squared, this is 4x, this is 2x, this is 8. The middle combines to be 6x, and that's what I originally started with for my warm-up, okay? So you should be able to go from factored form to the quadratic form and back, okay? So guys, looking at this, I'm given the solutions. Can you guys now tell me what the factors are? And what's this one going to be? There we go. So that's the factored form. And now let's get the quadratic equation form, okay? So what I'm going to do is x times x is x squared. X times -5 is -5x. 1/2 times x is 1/2 x. 1/2 times a -5 is -5/2. The reason why is because you can think of this as over 1. You just multiply across. 1 times -5 is -5. 2 times 1 is 2. Okay? When you're multiplying fractions, you just multiply across. Okay. So now, guys, let's combine the middle again. You're going to have to remember something from a long time ago, back in elementary school. When you're adding fractions, what do you need? Yes, you guys need a common denominator. So what's my denominator over here? Yep, so this one has a 1/2. So the denominator here is a 2, but this over here is -5. You can think of it as over 1. Now, what should I multiply this 1 by so that they're both 2? A 2. And if you do it to the denominator, you must do it to the numerator. So this fraction will become -10 over 2. Does that make sense? Okay. Guys, isn't -10 over 2 just -5? That's what that is. So we're just changing the form. That's all. So I'm going to rewrite this as this is x squared minus, rewrite this fraction, or rewrite it as a fraction. And the rest of this can stay the same. Now, let's go ahead and combine the middle. This will be x squared minus 9 over 2x minus 5/2. The denominator stays the same. when you're adding and subtracting fractions. All right. I'm going to have you guys practice multiplying out the factors and also giving the factors when I give you a solution. Okay, what does GCF stand for? Yes, the greatest common factor. Okay, so looking at the first one, what can both of those terms be divided by? 3. So whatever you divide by will go on the outside. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so those canceled out. I have x plus 12 divided by 3 is 4. How can I check and see if I did it right or not? Distribute it. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 4 is 12. Oh, that's what I started with. That means these are my factors. I factored it. Okay, let's try number 6. What can 4 and 24 both be divided by? 4. Now, do they both have a y they can give me? Yep, the first one has 2 y's and the other one has 1 y. So they both can give me at least 1 y. We're going to divide by 4y, so that goes on the outside. These 4's cancel. These y's cancel. What am I left with? Y minus 6. How can I check if I'm right? Distribute it, so I'll do that in blue. 4y times another y is 4y squared. 4y times negative 6 is negative 24y. And that's what I started with. Let's try number 8. Let's try number 8. Okay, what can 14 and 18 both be divided by? 2. Can they both give me a variable? They both have an h to give away, so let's divide it by h. So 2h is on the bottom, is on the outside. Those h's cancel, these h's cancel. 14 divided by 2 is 7, and you still have a g, minus 18 divided by 2 is 9. So these are your this is factored form. And you can always multiply it, you can distribute it to check and see if you get the original or not. Guys, this is called differences of squares. Differences of squares. Okay, so first you need to make sure you actually have a difference. What does difference mean? Yes, a subtraction. So make sure you have a subtraction sign. Notice my 2 examples, we have subtraction signs. If you do not have a subtraction sign, this is not difference of squares, okay? Difference means subtraction. The reason why we call it difference of squares is because for these problems, you can easily do the square root of both of these. These are all perfect squares. So let's look at this. If I took the square root of this and the square root of this, what would I get? A minus 2. That's one of your factors. Now just do the opposite. Those are your factors. So that's the rule here. You do the square root of A minus the square root of B. And then you do the opposite with the plus sign. So let's try this one. What's the square root of n squared? Just n, because those cancel out. And then what's the square root of 64? 8. And do the opposite. So this is the rule. You do the square roots of both. Okay, now let's look at this one. Again, we know the square root of 1. What's the square root of 1? 1 minus, what's the square root of 49y squared? 7y, because the square root will cancel out with this squared, and the square root of 49 is 7. Now, just do the same thing, just with the plus sign. What's the square root of 25y squared? 5x minus the square root of 49, 7. Now we'll just do the opposite. Now, we can always check our answers by distributing again. So what's 1 times 1? 1. 1 times 7y. 7y. Negative 7y times 1. Yep. Negative 7 times a positive 7. And what's y times y? Y squared. Okay, do you guys see that this cancels? Yes. Good. So I'm left with what I started with. Okay, we can do the same thing over here. 5x times 5x is 25x squared. 5x times 7 is 35x. Negative 7 times 5x is negative 35x. Negative 7 times a positive 7 is negative 49. That cancels out. Now I'm left with what I started with. Okay? So I'm going to have you guys practice the rest of these. Okay, so now we're going to factor. And before we factor, can these 3 terms be divided by something? Yes. What? 4. Everyone divide those trinomials. Or this is a trinomial divided by 4. Okay, whatever you divide by goes outside and it stays out there. What's left over is k squared plus 12 divided by 4 is 3. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Now that I simplified, I'm going to go ahead and factor. So I want 2 numbers that multiply but to 2, but add to 3. Yep, 1 times 2 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3. So my factors will be k plus 1 times k plus 2 with the 4 on the outside. Do you guys need another example of this kind? Okay, I'll do this one. What can all of these be divided by? 3. 3 and what else? They all have an a, don't they? So we're going to also divide by a. So 3a will go on the outside. That cancels. How many a's am I left with? Yep, a squared. 1a cancels out with one of those a's. And 30 divided by 3 is 10. Those a's cancel. 63 divided by 3 is 21. Now we'll go ahead and factor. 2 numbers that multiply to 21 but add to 10 are 7 and 3. 7 times 3 is 21, but if you add them, you get 10. So my answer will be 3a is on the outside, and my factors are a plus 7, a plus 3. Okay, this was our warm-up problem. Our a value was 1. So we went straight to doing our little chart and factoring. However, you are going to have problems where your a value is not 1 and you can't divide by anything, okay? These 3 numbers cannot be divided by the same thing. So when your a value is not 1, when a is not 1, you're going to have to do a times c up here. So we do 2 times 3, which is 6. And this is still your b value, 5. Now we can start. What are 2 numbers that multiply to 6 but add to 5? There we go. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 plus 3 is 5. So this is how we're going to set it up, guys. I'm going to write 2x squared. That's this first term. And the last term will stay the same. This middle term, I'm going to separate it into 2x plus 3x. Do you guys see how 2x plus 3x is 5x? Okay, so I'm going to write 4 different terms. Okay, now split it down the middle. We're going to do the GCF of both sides. What can both of these be divided by? 2x. Whatever you divide by goes outside. Those 2's cancel. I'm left with an x. What's 2x divided by 2x? 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. Now let's look at this side. What can these both be divided by? 3. So 3 is on the outside, and you're left with x plus 1. Okay, now I know I did this correctly because this parentheses matches this parentheses. When you see that, that means you did it correctly, okay? So what matches the x plus 1s, that will go in one parentheses, and what is on the outside will go in its own parentheses. So these are your factors. How can you check? Distribute, so you can multiply it back out and you'll get this. All right, let's try another example. Again, I have an A value that is not 1. Can I divide these by something? No. Okay, so I'm going to have to do the same method. This method is called factoring by grouping, by the way. So if you want to go and do practice at home, you can just type this into Google and many videos will pop up. This is called factoring by grouping. Okay. All right, so I'm going to do 5 times 6, which is 30, and I want them to add to negative 17. Negative 2 and negative 15. So this will be 5m squared minus 2m minus 15m plus 6. Split it down the middle.
Whether you put the 2 on the left or the right?
No, that doesn't matter. Good question. She asked if it matters if I set it up like this or if I do it this way. You'll get the same answer. So somebody in the class, do it this way, and you'll get the same thing if we do it this way. It doesn't matter. Okay, what can these both be divided by? M. So M is on the outside, and I'm left with 5m minus 2. This side, what can we divide by? Okay, since this is negative, we want to divide by a negative as well. So we're going to divide by negative 3. Negative 15 divided by negative 3 is 5. 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. You guys see how my parentheses match? That means we did this correctly. So that will go inside of one parentheses. What is on the outside will go in the other parentheses. So those are your factors. I'll do one more with you. Again, we can't divide these by something. So we're going to go to our eye chart. We're going to do A times C. So that's 6 times negative 4. That's negative 24. Your B value is negative 5. Okay, can y'all think of some numbers? If it's difficult for you to figure out numbers, I would create a list. Yes. So you can always start with this. Those don't work. Positive 1 and negative 24, that didn't work. 2 times negative 12, that didn't work. Negative 2 times positive 12, that didn't work. 3 and negative 8 or negative 3 and positive 8. It looks like this one works. So it might help you to start with 1 and then just go down the list, okay? All right, so that means I'm going to do 6y squared plus 3y minus 8y minus 4. Split it down the middle. Okay, what can these both be divided by? 3y. So that will be on the outside. Uh-oh. What's 6 divided by 3? 2. Plus 1. And then over here, we're dividing by negative 2. So negative 2 is on the outside. This will be 4y plus. Why do we divide by a negative 2? Is that the biggest one we can do? Let's do -4. Because then they wouldn't match. We have to make sure they match. So -4 is on the outside. -8 divided by -4 is 2. And this is 1. So now they match. So we did it correctly. So 2y plus 1 will be in one parentheses, and 3y minus 4 will be in the other parentheses. And those are your factors. Now, let's just do an example real quick. Let's say I reverse the order and I put the -8y here and the +3y here. A lot of students get confused when they get to this part. They don't know what to divide by, right? So if you can't divide by anything, because it's as simple as it will get, just divide by a 1. So put a 1 out here. Okay, this one you would divide by 2y. So 2y is on the outside, you'd get 3y minus 4. Those match, so that will go in one parentheses. And what's on the outside will go in the other one. So you guys, we got the same answer. Okay, we got the same answer. So it doesn't matter which order you put these two in.